All right, so it's recording. All right, guys, my name is Tyler Hooks from LiveRC, and I'm here with Ryan Maifield, and we're going to do a bit of an interview. I didn't write down any questions for this, and Ryan doesn't give super formal interviews, so I think we've got this pretty figured out. We wanted to talk a little bit about Ryan's life, kind of where he came from, and for those of you who don't know him personally, kind of the story, and just give people kind of an overview of Ryan Maifield and the guy behind the racer that you see in the videos and stuff like that. So, um, if you don't mind, could you tell us like when you got started racing and where and how?
Yeah, I got started racing when I was probably about 6 years old, maybe 7 years old. My dad just taught me how to drive out front of our house, some paper plates on the ground, and taught me left and right and, a little bit of throttle control. And we went to the track, started practicing there. And then we just did local racing, in the novice class. And back then, if you won novice, you'd get bumped up to stock. And if you won stock, you get bumped up to mod. And so, yeah, I got bumped up out of the novice class pretty quickly. Not sure how fast, but my dad would know that. And just kind of went from there.
So this was this in the same area that you're in now, basically?
Yeah, the old SRS. Most people remember the outdoor SRS in Scottsdale. The first SRS was a few miles away from that. That's where we got started there, and then it moved to where the Cactus Classic, was made famous, the outdoor SRS. And I raced there 3 times a week, practiced as much as possible, and mainly raced just 10 scale until later on kind of switched over to the ace, not switched, but added the A scale stuff into my driving. But yeah, I mean, I raced a long time before there was ever any sort of pro level hopes or dreams or any major race wins to really prove that I could be where I am today. I guess you could say.
Yeah, I want to say that that's something that I've heard you say just in our own conversations, that I don't think a lot of people know or realize is you raced for a long time before anything popped off or happened really. So at what age do you think that it kind of all changed? And on the other end of that, what was the plan? Like, what were you gonna do before you decided, hey, like maybe I can make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, the thinking of racers back then wasn't that of to be a pro, or to be sponsored, or kind of you just did it for fun. It was something that you enjoyed doing. I used to go. There's a good group of guys here locally. Names a lot of people have heard, like Billy Fisher and Brent Telke, Jim Gard. I'm missing a lot of guys, but a lot of fast guys. And I just enjoyed racing and being at the track. I love the atmosphere, and it was wasn't a plan to do this. I ended up winning the 2003 Cactus Classic two-wheel drive mod class that year. That was my first big win. But before that, I was going to school. Actually, probably during that, I was going to school for auto mechanics and working, different jobs here and there. As a teenager, worked at Discount Tire and worked with a buddy trimming trees. I worked with my parents, at night with their janitorial company they had. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess what I was going to do is maybe be an auto mechanic because that's what I was going to go to school for. And that's something I enjoyed. But yeah, winning that major race just kind of opened the door to, start traveling. There was no money involved, just, getting some travel help from Team Associated. And then it kind of went from there took a while to even get to where I am now, but it's been, I wouldn't say a slow process. It's been a good, fun process. And I think I am where I am now because my intentions of racing back then were just doing it for fun, and it still is. I still love to do it. It's something I enjoy doing on a daily basis, even if I'm not at the track playing around with stuff at home with the kid or whatever. So I think, yeah, the biggest lesson there is do it for fun, and hopefully maybe something cool comes out of it.
Yeah, and I would say too, and I could be wrong, so maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but growing up racing and even your early 20s and getting the cactus win and stuff like that, there wasn't a whole lot of money behind the scenes for you as a racer. Like you were kind of just having to try to make it work with what was left over. So I see you even now. You're a pretty frugal racer. Like you're not the guy who, if you can get away with it, you're not the guy who's putting on new tires every run or whatever. Like it's just not in your nature. So was that the way it was growing up? Like was there a whole lot of money to fall back on if you had to?
No, no, my parents, until I was, um, you know, able to have sponsors and stuff like that, my parents flipped the bill for everything, and they were, they weren't very well off. They weren't poor by any means. We had plenty of money to live and do these fun things, but there wasn't, a ton of extra money just to go buy whatever the latest greatest thing was. I think most of the cars I started with in race were used cars my dad bought from people at the track. Um, and yeah, it wasn't, I remember digging tires out of trash cans at the Cactus Classic and, thinking, man, these look brand new. I'll run these on my next round, so, um, and I don't know if I think like that anymore, but I know if I don't, have to waste product, I try not to. I'm sure I've learned that lesson from my parents, and I know how much this stuff costs, and we definitely had to. There was a budget that we raced within, and I definitely learned that it wasn't all about money. You know what I mean? You didn't need the best stuff to be the fastest guy. You just needed your stuff to be, built proper, and got to drive better than the next guy on the track.
So, moving into your 20s and when things started to kind of actually click, would you say that, as a compared to the next guy, and it's really easy to say now that you have, an incredible amount of natural talent, et cetera, but obviously it came on pretty late. So when you compare yourself to the guys that you grew up with, like the Tebows and the Cavalieris, did you have that raw talent, or was it something that clicked, outside of that kind of helps you get into the game?
Um, yeah, I had the raw talent. I would think, from like I said, very beginning, just from the first, novice race I raced with my dad when I was 6 or 7 years old. But that raw talent can only get you so far. You need to have, for me, I think just the understanding of the vehicles and understanding how to learn how to control that talent, or that raw speed on the track is what took the longest. Um, respecting the other competitors and understanding that, you're not going to win every single time, and to understand more why you didn't win instead of, trying to make excuses why you didn't win or something like that. So, and it's maturity. I made almost every mistake possible, in my personal life and in my racing life. And I've had to learn the hard way a lot of times, um, even with a lot of good people around me. But so it's taken some time to kind of hone in on this balance of raw speed and common sense on the track, and respecting your other competitors and understanding why they're good sometimes and why sometimes I'm a little bit better. So yeah, it's taken a long time, and I see that in a lot of young drivers. There's just this maturity process that has to take place, and you can't rush it. It's not something that just clicks overnight. It's just a lot of little lessons that unless your eyes are open to those lessons, you're not going to realize that it's a lesson. You know what I mean? Like you have to just take the blows that are dealt, that you're taking while you're on your bad days, learn from those lessons, and turn them into good days.
Yeah. So when do you think, this isn't a surprise to anybody, but um, you've had your ups and downs as far as things on the driver's stand or altercations with people or whatever. When do you think that kind of clicked for the most part, where it was like, hey, like I need to stay in tune with what I've got going on to be able to finish where I want to finish and do what I want to do?
I don't know. I mean, eventually you realize that this is a really small world, and you're going to live to race another day, and you're going to have to race all these the same people, a week or so later. So, it's, I've had my fair share of run-ins with almost everybody in the pro world, and I've been able to mend, I would say, most of those relationships to where I would consider them friends. And that just, I think, like I said, it just takes time. um, I think a lot that helped me was just my wife and my family. It makes me realize that there's more important things in the world than whatever little altercation takes place on the track. And I'm extremely lucky to be doing what I'm doing and making a living at it to support my family. And it's something I still love to do. So because of those things, I think I've learned to take what happens on the track or on the driver's stand with a little bit of a grain of salt, and just take a minute to breathe and count to 10 or whatever. Most of the time when I'm done marshaling, it's past me. I've kind of chilled out and I've calmed down. So yeah, like I said, again, it's just time, maturity, and yeah, now I feel pretty comfortable with, if something's not going my way, I've learned how to kind of talk to myself and just chill out so I don't say anything dumb. Still might happen, but it's a lot better. I'm a lot better than I was, for sure.
So I think in the most recent years, we saw a lot of times where you were pretty lethal with a 10 scale car, and you would have those. Talking to Jason Rona, he said, you would kind of have those times where, something would happen in 8 scale and you wouldn't end up with these perfect weekends like you've been able to put together at Nitro Challenge and some of the other bigger races. And, but it looks like almost kind of the opposite is happening in 2020, 2021, where your 8 scale program is the one that's pretty dominant. And the 10 scale one is maybe where the results aren't as steady as you would probably want them to be. Do you think that there's any sort of shift in the way that people are driving? Like from my point of view, not I can't go that fast. I can orbit the track with you guys and be out there and not be in the way, but the way it looks to me in 10 scale is you kind of have to be going 110%, from the drop of the gate all the way to the end. And in 8 scale, there's a lot more thinking involved and strategy, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think the deal is? Like what's changing and how does that play into your strengths or weaknesses?
Well, I think 10 scale racing in general, sorry, there's a bug, has changed mainly because the tires are so important. It's all about your tire. You can take my car and Spencer's car on the same track, and, say my tires are perfect and his tires aren't. We just switch tires, and all of a sudden now his car's way faster, my car's way slower. So now, granted, we run the same tire, but how you prep them and how you treat them changes a lot on the track. So I think for 10 scale, you need to have your tire game perfect. Your car also has to be on point, and like you said, you got to drive that thing perfect for 5 minutes. There's no room for mistakes. Like just this weekend at Hobby Action at the Desert Classic, that track is very tricky. You have to be able to run a perfect race, and you still might be running fourth or fifth. You know what I mean? It's just maybe your tires weren't on that week, that run. So it's still takes a great amount of driving ability, but it takes your tires and your car to be perfect too, to put in a solid weekend. And I think with A scale, it kind of leans more to your strategy as far as how hard you're driving your car and getting your car to feel right, to where you're driving, like the car is going fast, but you don't have to drive it so hard. So if you can find that balance in A scale to where you're, driving at 70%, but you're putting on the fastest laps, that means that car is going to be great for a main event. And your tire game isn't as crucial in A scale as long as you're running the correct tire in the correct compound, you can just basically put new ones on or run reruns like what I was doing at DNC. And, the track's always going to be changing in A scale. So it's kind of more up to the driver. And then at that point for the main event, you just got to make sure the thing's going to stay together. You have the right fuel strategy, the right pit guy, and you can put together a pretty solid weekend. And it's, there's not as many little things that have to come together, like nowadays in 10 scale. Like I said, if you don't have your tires right and you're not driving perfect, you're going to have a bad weekend. And that's basically what I did this last weekend at a Desert Classic. Just some small driving errors that turns into a big mistake. And being off on your tire game a couple rounds can really put you behind the eight ball in qualifying. And, it can turn it can quickly turn from a decent weekend in 10 scale to a bad weekend if you're not on top of your game with all that stuff.
Yeah. So there's some people that, take a lot of, well, okay, that's probably not. There's this growing trend in all motorsports, whether it's, what we do or full scale or whatever, where, you take a look at the psychology behind the racing itself. And your mental game and what you've got going on in your life and how you approach things, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that we talked a little bit at Nitro Challenge about that and how, you kept putting yourself in situations that made, the next day or the next main or whatever that much easier mentally. And I was just curious, like, what we saw in Truggy qualifying, for example, you were close all day. And then finally in the third round of qualifying, the round of qualifying that's closest to what the main event's going to be like, you're on top of it, you're ready to go, and you take the TQ. And then, when you actually go out for the Truggy main, you're able to take a pretty convincing win. And then you're able to parlay that into an e-buggy win later on that night. Do you put any emphasis on that type of, thought process, the whole, psychology or whatever you want to call it, if you will, or is it just something that you do?
I would say I treat every weekend as it's that weekend. You know what I mean? If I'm at that event, I don't think of what I did at the previous event. You know what I mean? So obviously Nitro Challenge is a really long race. So I knew everybody knew that the main events are going to be ran, in the evening time. So I did put a little bit of emphasis on those last rounds of qualifying in all the cars, just because I knew that was when we were going to be running those main events. And, round one and round two of qualifying, the track, we weren't going to see that track in the main. So it didn't really matter. Obviously, you want to get a good qualifying point, but, you want to know what your car is going to do for the main event. So, I mean, obviously, after that third round of truck, when I did TQ, the truck felt really good, and I learned, I did some different stuff to my tires and changed a few things on my truck that I could transfer over to the other cars, and that did give me some confidence, knowing that I guess I didn't know 100% what to do, but it gave me some confidence that my actions in the pits were, turning into good results on the track and making the right decision for that time, that time of day that we were going to race these mains. So, but that's that race, when you go to AMS or PMB or even Desert Classic, you have to look at it a little differently. You got to be able to try to predict what those tracks are going to do, from round to round, because they're probably not going to change as much as a track like Nitro Challenge. So yeah, I do, especially in Nitro, I do try to focus more on the main events during qualifying, and potentially sacrifice a little bit of qualifying speed just to prepare for the longer main events. But it also depends on the track and the situation.
All right. So obviously you're a parent now. You've got your wife, you've got your kid and everything. Everybody clichely says that changes how they look at what they do. But um, is there any insight that you can add to having, a kid and having a family of your own and how that has actually impacted your racing?
I think it's only impacted my racing in a positive way. You know, it makes it to where if I'm leaving town, um, I better put 110% effort into it. Not saying I didn't do that before, but I definitely, it's tough leaving. So when I do have to leave to go racing, I want to try to make sure it was worth it. You know what I mean? And put in a solid effort and try to get a win, or try to be on the podiums in every class. And so the time away was well spent. And when I'm home with them, it makes me happy when my kid's in here playing in my wrench room with me while I'm trying to get things done. A lot of the time, it makes it a little more difficult trying to get things accomplished, but it makes it more fun also. So, and I'm lucky to have a family behind me that my wife has always understood this is what I do, and I have to travel, and she's good about that, and she holds down the fort while I'm away. So yeah, I think for a guy like me that is bugs in here, I have a lot of interests outside of RC, like behind me, this car and stuff. And so with the family being around, it's definitely taken time away from doing extracurricular activities, but it makes me focus more on the RC stuff because it is what my job is. And seeing my kid play with these cars, and just seeing the excitement in his eyes has made me more excited, because I can't wait to be able to go racing with him and watch him experience all this stuff for the first time. And so, yeah, I'm excited for the future, and I look forward to being able to race with my kids.
And not that these other guys were your kids by any means, but you had those guys when you were growing up that took you under their wing and helped you get to be what you are today. And you know whether famously or not so famously, you've kind of done the same thing for some other drivers. How did that come about with a younger Tanner Denny or a younger Spencer Rivkin? Did their parents approach you, or did you kind of just see something that was interesting in them and make it kind of your goal to see if you could make them any better?
I don't know. I don't think there was any. There was definitely some people in my life early on, like Brent Telke, um, a couple other guys. Tony Bino was a guy that raced here or still races here. It took me to a lot of A scale races when I was young and kind of taught me some things there. Richard Saxton taught me a lot. I've been, around Adam Drake since I started racing. So that was, all these guys have helped me. Jason Rona, obviously, all these guys have kind of, I don't know if they've ever really taught me the techniques of driving, but maybe they've taught me the techniques of working on the car and preparing in between races and stuff like that. So yeah, Tanner Denny was at the Cactus Classic one year. I didn't know who they were. They introduced themselves, and they said they were just getting into it. It gave them some parts. We ended up basically living right down the road from each other, and a friendship kind of blossomed from there. And kind of not realizing it, but I turned into kind of a coach, so to speak, and helping them get their program going. And he has a lot of talent, and it showed up fast in his racing. And, we've been friends ever since. And, Spencer was a local kid and racing out at the Nitro pit, the old old Nitro track out here. And I remember him being a little brat. I don't think they really talked to many people. And, he started getting better and some people started helping him. And I was approached by another guy that was helping him at the time. And he said, "Hey, I've got this kid to this point, but he's got way more talent than what I know what to do with. You think about talking to him and seeing what you can do to try to coach him up to the next level." So from there, I talked to his dad and him, and we just started running together. And after I taught him to stop letting go of the steering wheel in every corner, all of a sudden he's a two-time world champion. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. I like watching young talent get better, and if I can help them in any way, I try because I feel like it's just better for me, and keeps me young at heart. And I don't mind getting beat by people that I've taught, and maybe someday I won't think that way, but right now I enjoy it, and it's fun to race with this younger generation for sure.
So I guess the last big question is, I'm not sure if 5 years ago or 6 years ago or 7 years ago, when the Dakota Finns and the Ty Tessmans were coming up and starting to take over, that you ever thought that you would be able to parlay your career as long as you have. But how much longer do you think you can keep this going at this level, or is it just you're just along for the ride?
Yeah, I would say I'm along for the ride. I don't. I think a few guys, myself, Cavalieri, Tebow, excuse me, are kind of breaking the mold, so to speak. I guess the guys before us definitely were kind of getting out of it about this time in their career, or even earlier than this. And I think you know some of the reasons why we're still able to do this is the racing has changed quite a bit. The cars are a lot different. The tracks are a lot different. It takes a lot more preparation at home and testing and being on top of your game than it ever did, before, I think. So maybe because we have that knowledge and we've seen what it takes, we know what it takes, and this is our livelihood. We're not gonna just stop because people are saying that we're getting too old for this, because I hear that quite a bit. And but I think it's an RC car. As long as I can see it and I can move my hands, I don't know why I can't do it for as long as I want. And I have a lot of companies that support me, and they're going to continue to support me as long as I'm putting in the effort, putting forth the results, and helping them develop these vehicles and these products. So I don't see my career ending anytime soon, and I hope that I can just keep putting in good efforts, good results, and yeah, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna try to stay as long as I can. You guys can't get rid of me yet.
I know, in my own career, whatever I want to call it, I had to make the decision to get a job in the industry and to go that direction. But I know that after talking to you, on several different occasions, like you're probably one of the reasons why I still, try to actually race at a high level, because hearing the story of going 10 or 12 or whatever years before anything big happened, it's like for somebody like me at 23 years old, or any of the other guys that are in their early 20s or whatever, like it's not too late for anybody, because it wasn't too late for Ryan Maifield, um, so I really wanted to do this interview because I know that a lot of people have a lot of these different opinions of you, and I know from my own personal experience that they aren't particularly the case. The Ryan Mayfield that maybe people see in the videos, or that through a radio or whatever, is not the Ryan Mayfield that shows up every day at the track, or that has mentored so many kids or young adults or whatever, like myself, to be able to get to the levels that we're all at. So yeah, I wanted to give people an opportunity to learn a little bit about you and your life and where you came from, because I think there's a lot more to it that meets the eye. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and to talk to us at LiveRC, and get a little bit of your story out there. Is there anything that you would like to say before we go ahead and turn this thing off?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, like you said, I know some people have an opinion of me, but I would I would say you can think whatever you want. I know who I am and what I do every day, and I all people need to know out in the internet world is that I love racing RC cars, and I'll help anybody that comes up to me and asks a decent question at the right time. Sometimes people approach, yeah, you can approach any pro guy at the wrong time, and you might get the middle finger thrown your way. But it's racing. You know what I mean? It's our passion, and sometimes our blood gets boiling, and it's just a bad time. So if I've done that to anybody, I apologize. But I like this, I will help anybody at any time, no matter what car. But sometimes it's racing. You're excited, you're mad, and you might say something dumb. So, but I want to thank all my sponsors, everybody that supported me, my family. Thanks you guys for covering all these events, and thanks for the interview. Yeah, I can't wait to get back out there We have a baby coming soon, another kid coming soon. So probably not going to see me for a while. My next race, I'm assuming, is going to be the Silver State in May. But I'll do some local stuff and see you guys at the next one.
Yeah, I didn't want to throw that out there without your approval, but yeah, congratulations on the second kid. That's gonna be pretty cool, and we'll see you when we see you.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, man.